Friday, everyone. I'm really excited. I wait for a Friday because obviously my week is intensive, but Friday is a day where I'm a little relaxed. So I'm really excited and happy to see familiar faces back on the show and some new faces today as well. So today's topic is about investments in e-commerce and consumer space. And what's the trend? What are the challenges around that space? Today, again, I basically, to start off with, myself, Sunny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of LATOKEN, and I'm based here in Singapore. So I host VCTV, which is the Venture Capital TV, where we connect investors like yourselves to great startups. Because startups are the ones who are going to drive the economy forward because they are developing something. But without investors, they can't go any further. So that's why we need you on a panel to share your views, your insights about how can you help them through your guidance. So we are all set, and I'm very excited. It's a Friday. From Singapore, I always travel. Pre-COVID. Now I'm traveling online with you guys. So since I'm in Asia, my first stop is going to be Indonesia. From Singapore, I go to Indonesia. I welcome my guest, Malaika, back on VCTV. Hi, Malaika. Happy Friday. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me back here.
Great. So the format is we're going to start with a short intro about the speaker, company you represent, and the investment fund you represent. Thank you. So Malaika, over to you.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Malika. I work for an Indonesian-based venture capital fund called AC Ventures. So AC Ventures is actually a newly formed fund, which is a merger of two separate funds called Convergence and AGB Ventures. So we announced our merger in April 2020, but we've been investing all the way since October 2019, around Q3, Q4 of 2019. Just a little bit of background about us. So we're an early stage venture fund. We're sector agnostic. We invest across Southeast Asia and Indonesia, but we primarily have a focus towards Indonesia. We invest across sectors like e-commerce, digital content, fintech, SME, enabling services, edutech, health tech. So we're super sector agnostic, but we really want to identify the sectors that we see growing the most in Indonesia and where the opportunities actually is. So maybe just a little bit of context about Indonesia. I always love talking about Indonesia because I think a lot of people still don't really understand where the opportunities are, but just a brief sort of overview. It's pretty much the largest country in Southeast Asia. We have about over 270 million people in terms of our population. 52% are between the ages 30 to 40. Over 30, sorry. And we've got a huge rising middle class and rising disposable income. We've been seeing some incredible growth trajectory over the last couple of years. And today it presents as one of the most attractive emerging markets to invest in. So our fund, we always say that the opportunity is now, and we're super duper happy to be a part of the ecosystem here today.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for that perspective and a background about Indonesia specifically. Next from Indonesia, the next stop is going to be Dubai. And in Dubai, who do we have in Dubai? We have Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, welcome back on VCTV. How are you today? You're on mute, Jennifer. We can't hear you.
Hello.
Hey.
My name is Jennifer Arquest. I'm a British lawyer, a corporate commercial lawyer here in Dubai. I own a law firm, been a lawyer for forever, 21 years. And what we do is we help startups, particularly tech startups, connect with investors to find investments for their ideas and their projects and so on. So that's what we do.
Excellent. Welcome back, Jennifer. I know you've got lots of insights to share from a Middle East perspective. So I'm going to hear more from you later after the introduction is over. So next I have two new speakers who just joined us for the very first time on our VCTV. Next up is Royce from Israel. Hi, Roy. Welcome to VCTV. Happy Friday. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to meet you. So Roy from Tweak, a personalization technology. Headed towards Series A. Pleasure to be with you guys.
Right. Okay. We're gonna ask you more questions later in the show. Welcome to VCTV and Roy. So next we have Walid. Hi, Walid. He's from Egypt. So, Khalid, please welcome to VCTV. It's the first time, and we'd like to know a bit about you.
Yes, my name is Walid Khalil. I am a managing partner to Endure Capital. Endure Capital is an American-based VC fund. We're based in Palo Alto, California. We do invest in early stage companies. We're geo-agnostic and sector agnostic. We have done, about our topic today, we have done so far more than 12 investments in e-commerce in Europe, in the States, and in the Middle East.
Excellent. Wow, that's a good portfolio. Thank you, Walid, and welcome back. Welcome, not welcome. I'm sorry, it's the first time. Excuse me, sorry. Okay, last but not least, we have Luis back on the show from the US. Hi, Luis. Welcome back. How are you today? Happy Friday, by the way.
Happy Friday, Malika. Bring that positive energy. I like that. I like that. You have to do that. You have to do that. It's early in the morning over here for me, so that's good stuff. Just to give you guys a skinny, I am a managing partner with FJ Partners. Been involved in finance for over 25 years. Involved heavily in the tech sector, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, collaboration platform, security. It's very important. We're involved in that area. I'm also the CEO of Megahoot, which is involved in a lot of these areas. And yeah, we work with a lot of different entrepreneurs and companies. The investments we look at they have to fit into what we're doing. And I'll go into more of the consumer end as we go along. I don't want to take too much time right now, so I'll just pass it back to you, Sonny.
Okay, thank you, Luis. I'm sure we have more insights coming from you later. So the topic is e-commerce. So as we all know, COVID-19 has accelerated the shift to e-commerce by 5 years, as per reports. So the pandemic has accelerated the shift away from physical stores to digital shopping by roughly 5 years, as per our IBM US Retail Index. So as per the index, in the first quarter of 2020, department store sales and other non-essential retailers declined by 25% for the obvious reasons, we know that. And on the flip side, the online shopping, the e-commerce just soared up. So we're going to discuss what's happening, what's the trends in the place, what's happening in terms of investments in that space. So which sector is performing better than others in e-commerce and in consumer apps, social apps. So that's the topic of the Friday evening for me. So I'm going to ask Malika, because Indonesia, as we know, is a big market. We have Gojek, and we have another startup that just raised millions from a venture in Singapore. So I'd like to start with Malika about the current trends, your recent investments, and where is this headed to? Thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll just start by giving a bit of an overview for e-commerce in Southeast Asia and where Indonesia fits into that. So in terms of the internet verticals, Southeast Asia is a huge market, and Indonesia's e-commerce, basically, I think if I were to sort of get the stats right, the verticals in Indonesia, if you put it all together, ride hailing, e-commerce, logistics, and pretty much everything that involves the internet, it's a huge sector, but e-commerce is kind of spearheading that growth. So we're about $40 billion in e-commerce market size as of 2018, and that figure is pretty much forecasted to hit over 100 billion in the next couple of years. The interesting thing, however, is even though there's been so much growth in e-commerce in Indonesia, the actual penetration of online retail GMV over total retail GMV is only 7%, which means that it's still incredibly underpenetrated for various reasons. So the challenges include, building out a logistics infrastructure that can actually fulfill all those orders, because Indonesia is such a geographically dispersed country. We have 17,000 islands, and logistics is a huge bottleneck for e-commerce. Yeah. Another thing is, if you go out of tier 1 cities, there's a surge in prices for different kinds of consumer goods. And that's also to do with the logistics cost that has to be incurred to actually deliver to those areas. So it's extremely inefficient. And another thing is, there is still quite a low trust and awareness for online brands today. So even though there are positive trends, what our thesis is e-commerce is far from reaching its peak in Indonesia today. And so the trends that we're seeing is extremely feeding into that growth further. And that includes things like the rising middle class and increasing disposable income, a young and engaging demographic that we see today. I think I made a mistake with the stat before. It's actually 50% of the population is under the age of 30, not over. So as you can see, it's extremely young population that's very social, very engaging. We've seen a huge increase in smartphone proliferation. And this is also, again, as you mentioned, further accelerated because of COVID, right? Even in Southeast Asia, like you said, the number is growth that was meant to happen in 5 years has been sort of accelerated and crunched into 1 year. And what we're seeing is, again, super accurate of you to say, Sony, a lot of other categories that people would not transact online for, like fresh produce, FMCG, daily essentials, that now people are spending a lot of time on that online, and we're seeing the other non-essential categories actually fall. So those are the categories that we want to spend more time on as well. Another interesting thing is Indonesia's GDP per capita has gone over $4,000, and that's kind of considered an inflection point in disposable income, because that's similar to China in 2010, 2011, where we actually saw that e-commerce hyper growth. So in terms of the trends, right, we're seeing that we want to continue to double down on e-commerce because it's really far from its true peak, and it still definitely has a lot of potential to grow. That being said, we've seen a couple of models. We've seen horizontal e-commerce players like Tokopedia, Bukalapak. They kind of cover a couple of categories, and they're horizontal where they don't actually have a category specific kind of model. But what's interesting about them is, even though they cover a lot of categories, in light of COVID, they've started to double down more in FMCG because that's where they'll see the most volume and frequency. So that's kind of the pivot, or more of like the focus area that they're going towards now. Then we see vertical marketplaces that focus on things like furniture. We've got a company called Dekoruma. Another e-commerce vertical, which we've seen quite some interesting growth as well, is secondhand marketplaces for cars, automotive and car trading. That's quite interesting as well. And then there are fashion e-commerce platforms that are marketplaces as well, like Hijup, which is focused on modest fashion for Indonesia. And then when you kind of move out of that sort of segment, and you kind of see how that's evolved, we've actually seen some really interesting social commerce models as well. That's piggybacking off of the kind of growth we've seen on Pinduoduo. So we've got a company called Kita Beli that focuses on the team purchase model. We've seen some models like Misho as well, where they use the agent model, not just for fashion, but also for daily essentials. I think Misho in India has also pivoted to allow women to sell, to be resellers for things like fresh produce and vitamins, medicines, and things like that. So it's a lot of like daily essential stuff as well. So that's what we've sort of seen. And I think where the opportunity is today, I think social commerce is in a very nascent phase, and we kind of want to continue to see how that plays out, because that piggybacks off the growth of e-commerce, taps into rural areas that hasn't been penetrated significantly by e-commerce. But they're also focusing on tapping into the social behavior that we see that is embedded in the Indonesian culture today. So that is quite a long explanation, but that kind of covers all the models that, or the development and evolution of e-commerce that we've seen in Indonesia today.
Absolutely, it does. And great start to the panel. Thank you, Malika, for sharing those insights. We're going to come back to you with more questions. Next, I'd like to start with Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. So first, I would like to covered Indonesia. We're going to listen about insights from Dubai, Middle East, and the region that you focus on.
Well, the Middle East in general has had a very high rate of e-commerce businesses and e-commerce users and consumers, primarily because of the lifestyle in this area, especially in countries like Saudi Arabia, where you have so many restrictions because of religion and culture and so on. But even more so, since COVID-19, there's been a surge in e-commerce and the use of e-commerce platforms by consumers. And it's predicted that by the end of this year, the revenues coming out of e-commerce alone will be around 19.7 billion US dollars. Some of the areas that we've seen a high use of e-commerce or pivots towards e-commerce is EdTech. Having platforms, there's so many platforms coming out now whereby because you have a lot of children at home, a lot of tech companies have come up with all these platforms whereby children can have e-learning remotely on a platform. We also have there's been increase in online gaming platforms as well, because people at home again, you have a lot of people wanting to download apps and so on. We've also seen an increase in use of e-commerce or providing solutions using health tech apps or biotech apps. So, for example, there's a company here that is trying to help with the development of vaccines and treatment for the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, in the fitness sector as well, we've seen a pivot towards people going online. So you have home workout applications being developed because the gyms here were very badly affected. And you have fitness instructions being shown on or streamed on Zoom, as well as Instagram Live, as well as YouTube. So the use of e-commerce primarily is going to grow, even in the restaurant industry. Food and beverage, a lot of the restaurants were affected, and so they had to think very quickly and pivot very quickly. And what you have now is a lot more of them are doing a combination of indoor eating as well as deliveries. They are having meal kits, whereby for some companies, some restaurants have been so innovative in that they try to create the experience at home just as you have it in the restaurant. So they create these meal boxes that the covering of the meal boxes replicate the tables in that particular restaurant. And when the boxes are delivered, the contents have everything that you have on your table if you were sitting in a restaurant. Plus, they have playlists. Some restaurants have playlists whereby the consumers can have or listen to the same typical type of music that is played in that restaurant. So if typically you listen to Arabic music, you have that playlist with that Arabic music. And then you have some restaurants are getting into DIY meal kits, as well as delivering fresh foods on a daily basis. But this is how some of them have managed to survive, by going online.
Yeah.
The automotive industry as well, we've seen a lot of change, but I think that is more for Europe and not in this region.
Right.
So yes, I think e-commerce is here to stay in some industries, because there's no way out, even after the vaccine is found, they just feel that this is one of the ways that they're going to be able to sustain their businesses and provide consumers a safe form of purchasing for them going forward.
Yeah, you absolutely.
We've also seen an increase in e-grocery as well, especially during the lockdowns. Yes, a lot of people are having stuff delivered to them at home because they were not brave enough even to go to the grocery stores. So that is still going on as well in the Middle East, especially in the UAE.
You're totally right. And I think e-commerce generally across the whole world has obviously accelerated humongously because of the social distancing aspect. But the way you describe the various, different verticals is interesting to know your perspective from that side as well. Thank you, Jennifer, for your insights. Next, I'd like to go to Roy. Hi, Roy.
Hello.
So tell us a little bit about Tweak and what Tweak does and what's the story in the e-commerce.
Of course. So Tweak actually incubated in an incubator I started about a decade ago, among several other startups. It's actually the one which I currently manage. We went out about a seed round, official seed round, after investing a pre-seed of 2.2 just last year. And recently we've pivoted to go to SMBs in the e-commerce area. So Tweak is a personalization automation tool that once installed, it automatically increases sales or lead generations or anything of this sort. It identifies the users, identifies the site structures, automatically identifies the business goals within the funnel, and it tracks the users and retargets them using a proprietary fingerprinting solution. So we have no issues with the current cookie You could call it a secondary cookie pandemic, because nowadays, amidst the Corona time, everybody's also dealing with privacy issues and the fact that GDPR, CCPA, the ICO is kind of making cookies obsolete. But this brings up new solutions. So recently, we've started launching plugins. We came to a point where Twig became fully automated and can be deployed with an installation of a single snippet or a plugin to automate that kind of growth. And it's actually been very good to us this period, because as you're probably aware, Shopify have doubled their valuation since the Corona started, and there are predictions that the coronavirus, that this pandemic is going to spike the e-commerce industry by at least 18% during the Corona. So in that sense, being able to release a product that reaches out to the SMBs is probably the best thing we could do. So during the Corona, we released our enterprise version for free. We enabled companies to kind of try it, have a go at it. And then when we released the freemium model, we realized that there's a distinct separation between the enterprises that take quite some time to bring on board, despite the product being so simple. But the SMBs have never had a solution for personalization, for UX enhancement, because it was all about A/B and multivariate testing tools. So when we started working on such a solution that can be deployed without any technical knowledge, and simultaneously many offline businesses found themselves having to learn how to use the online arena, the majority of which just joined platforms such as Wix and Shopify, deploying such a solution came just at the right time. So we're now headed towards a Series A, as I mentioned at the beginning, but with a much more solid industry or clientele for that period.
Yeah. So were you like, I mean, your pre-Series A came during the pandemic or was pre-pandemic?
No, we decided to go on the Series A just this year. I founded the company myself, so I invest in several startups. But we went out to do our official seed round in April last year. We raised enough capital to last us throughout next year, and we're now doing a safe bridge round towards Series A next year, hopefully at a valuation of around $40 million. So this kind of atmosphere enabled us to spike the company very quickly.
So since April till September 2020, so basically from April till January 2020, how was the pace in terms of customer acquisition traction for you, and how did it change after January 2020?
So we released the product in January 17. And we've been in stealth mode until a few months ago, when we released our enterprise version for free, and then when we decided to go with the plugins. Once we've done that, we've also done a webinar hosted by Google. We've seen an exponential growth. The company has only dealt with about 50 enterprises over the course of 3 years as clients, but when we released the freemium version, we grew and gathered about 250 additional enterprises and about a total of about 1,000 installations, and that is before the release of the plugins, the first of which is due next week for Shopify. So there is already a plugin on Shopify. If you look for Twig, you'll find it, but it's basically a business intelligence plugin that assesses the performance of your website. The next version to be released next week is just going to increase sales automatically. So the model goes in a sense that when you join, it provides you with a 2-week trial. It just shows you the growth in terms of how much money you've increased in revenues. The total fee for utilizing Twig for a website with about 100,000 visitors should be about $49. So this is also a game changer, because all A/B multivariate platforms are starting from 10 grand a month. So this really could be a changer to an industry which is now beginning to rise, the e-commerce arena, and mainly the SMBs on that.
Where are the user base mostly from? Are they mostly in Israel, or they're mostly global?
No, we are a company based in Tel Aviv, making it very easy in terms of connections, because there is there's a nice Silicon Valley here, but the majority of our clients are European or American clients.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. Roy, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So Walid, next, I would like to know your perspectives and insights on the current trends. I mean, obviously, we all know it's a positive trend, but we'd like to, first of all, know from you which markets, which geographies you cover, like invest into, what stage of startups, and if you recently made an investment.
Yeah, let me tell you, first of all, as I said before, we are geo-agnostic and we are sector agnostic. So We were one of the early investors in Kareem back in 2015. Kareem, the one that got acquired by Uber later on. And we are also one of the early investors of Boom Supersonic, one of the rising stars in the Silicon Valley right now. They are doing supersonic aircrafts. And this investment has been joined by Sir Richard Branson and others, Sir Richard Branson and Japan Airline and others. So what I want to say, we had a very good appeal to the very early stage companies, and we learned that inside one sector you cannot have several unicorns. You will have very few of them. The time of the corona, when the corona struck, everyone panicked, and we also panicked, and we started to look at the opportunities there together with the risks there. And because we have several investments existing in the area of the e-commerce, like in the edutech, like in the FMCG, like groceries and other basic needs, we started to focus on these investments, and we found that there is a crazy return coming there. This year specifically, our IR is almost more than 30% increased. This year only, everyone is looking very much into the basic needs. So we thought that areas like telemedicine, like digital health, like supplies, home supplies, any home supplies, also food and beverages and fitness, like my friends has just mentioned a few minutes ago. So we have several investments of those that managed to raise decent amount of money during the pandemic. Like in Egypt, we have Maxup. It's a company that's less than 24 months old, and they are now selling for over $7 million a month. Like in Jordan, we have Abwab. It's an edutech company doing a very good job. They became the official, also less than 24 months old, the company, and they signed a very good agreement with the government. We have a couple of companies in fintech, Dapi and Thunder, just coming very strong from the YC intake, the last one. And they have very decent valuation right now. So what I want to say is, as much as the pandemic is made us all panic, we witnessed very good opportunities. I'm just telling you, the consumer behavior is changing, and it will never be the same. It has been digitalized forwarded like 5 years. Hello?
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And just that's it. This is what we have been witnessing throughout the past period. I think after the Corona time, the consumer behavior will witness tangible drifts, and we have been working hard to capitalize on this change in the behavior. If you look at only one vertical, like the grocery vertical, Egypt, Saudi, and Emirates, they consume yearly like $180 billion US, and the penetration of e-commerce in there is less than 1%. So that's why we have several companies also in this domain, like as I said before, Maxup, Breadfast, Fakahani, and others are working hard to penetrate and to capitalize on the change in behavior throughout this period. That's it.
If I understand, a lot of investments in the space during the pandemic. Thank you so much. Next, I have Luis. Hi, Luis.
Hello there. All right.
Hey.
We're going to go, I'm just going to go through general things. Malika makes some good points with Indonesia. I want to say something about that. When people look at Southeast Asia, that they look at Malaysia as being the tech capital of everything. Indonesia is building up over there, and it's going to be very interesting what you're going to see in the next couple of years. As far as consumers and e-commerce is concerned, the pandemic, it's not a trend. Yeah. There's an indelible mark that's been made. Okay. And consumers, they're being very cautious with how they do things, who they buy from, where they buy from, how they buy from, how they transact. the companies, the retail companies, the brick and mortar that have not embraced e-commerce, they're going to be ghosts. They're going to be dinosaurs, because e-commerce and people, this everything that's transpired post-pandemic will stay with us. This is a change that won't change back. Okay, it's like going from a horse and buggy. You got into the car. Now you got other transportation, and people are, the society is beginning to understand that, hey, you don't need to be in an office to go and work. You can actually work remotely. It's going to increase productivity, is going to allow people to have a better quality of life. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be happening. And e-commerce, the companies that adhere to what consumers want, the consumers look at service first, communicating with them, because people right now in general, whether it's you, me, anyone, they're anxious because the employment situation is in flux. We don't know what's going to happen, whether you're going to have a job tomorrow or not. A lot of people are worried about this. So the more communication you have with the consumers, the better you're going to be. Roy mentioned some things with plugins and everything, and I think that's interesting. I appreciate what Jennifer and Waleed, what their input, added to this conversation. And I think that the panels like what you have here should educate the viewers more on what's happening, and the companies, the entrepreneurs that are involved in e-commerce, just make sure when you're doing this and you're building these platforms, these portals, just make sure that you're really taking the user interface, you're taking the consumers into mind, because the more you go and you connect with them and you communicate, not an absentee website, you just put it up there, like even with Amazon is successful because people think that Amazon is an e-commerce site. It's not. It's a logistics company. They're bringing things from A to Z, and they're making things easy for you as a consumer to get. Okay, so if e-commerce companies, if they have a product and they're selling it, you also have to look at the logistics part of it. So companies that are involved in the technology end of logistics, they're going to flourish, because all of this is going to come to a head. The world is getting smaller. I don't care where you are. You're in Singapore, you're in Malaysia, you're here, you're there. Okay, you can ship something to New York and it can get there the next day. So logistics becomes a very important part of things. Okay, and the consumers, they're going to be very particular with who they work with and who they deal with. Jennifer, you made a lot of good points on things, and I think we should expand on that a little bit, because I think that the viewers should hear this, and entrepreneurs that are hearing this, maybe they're going to say, hey, maybe I'm not going on the right path. Maybe I should change things up a little bit so that you have a viable product for the future. You have to have an impact on the future. And one thing I would like to say to entrepreneurs, be fearless in what you do, be creative. Don't be a mirror of someone else or another company. Create something different, make something different. Okay. Anyway, with that said, I'm going to pass the ball back to you, Sonny.
Thank you so much. That was a great point. Be unique. Thank you so much. Malaika, I want to ask you about sustainable e-commerce platform, because we have heard a lot about the e-commerce waste. So how can startups think about building sustainable platforms? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. So good question, great question. In Indonesia, I think we haven't really seen an e-commerce platform only focused on sustainability. I think sustainability becomes a concept that they kind of feed into the business as a function of reducing waste, reducing cost, optimizing logistics, optimizing inventory management, and things like that. I haven't really seen a company just solely focus on sustainability, but I definitely agree that it becomes a concept and a facet of the business that you just can't ignore. So usually there are teams that are focused around that, but I can't really name any company that's just focused on that.
Okay. So Jennifer, your insights about sustainability, because you cover a lot of sustainability topics on our panel.
I think the key thing I'll say for startups is they need to understand, since COVID, how the consumer has changed, how they're purchasing, and what they're purchasing before you start coming up with any form of applications in any sector, because that is what is going to get you to sustain. So it's just observing the consumer patterns, or even reading. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the internet. There are reports written by PwC, Accenture, and all these big finance companies and accountancy firms that will give the starters a good insight as to what's going on, and then you can build your apps around it. But it's also to continue to observe what's going on. For example, here in the UAE, the big brands are closing down because consumers are buying from the brands that they know and trust. They're going for more localized brands. They're buying from community stores, and they're spending less. So these are some of the things that you need to observe. And also going forward, as we move towards finding a vaccine for this coronavirus and beyond into next year, it's a continuous observing of what the consumer is doing, how they're purchasing, what you're doing, and then that's going to get a business to sustain. I mean, we are lawyers, but we have had to pivot to taking some of our services online to make it easier. To make it easier for our clients and the public to come to us. Otherwise, we'll get left behind. Like just as one of the speakers said, everybody has to do it. Even accountants are suffering as well. The pandemic has affected every single sector you can think about, and for sectors that are not able to pivot quickly because we're almost towards the end of the year, they're going to find next year comes, they're going to be left behind. So that's my advice to startups. It's just keeping that eye open while you're building your app and observing what the consumer is doing. And also to realize that there's a huge surge in digital and contactless payment gateways. So this is how the consumer wants to pay. Even in shops as well as restaurants, instead of giving cash out, now most of the time places just want you to dig out your card and pay for things. So if you can build your apps and payments on that premise, then you're likely to sustain going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm just conscious of the time. Roy, so how sustainable is your platform, or what are your goals towards building a sustainable e-commerce business?
So I think both Jennifer and Luis were headed on the spot in terms of pivoting and in terms of paying attention to the users and improving the user experience. What Twig does is basically that for other websites. So obviously we take that into consideration when trying to serve our customers, and we always pivot and we always try to innovate. But also it's very important for us during this time to network. So now that Tel Aviv has signed a nice peace agreement with Dubai and Bahrain, so we're trying to reach the Emirates. We're trying to enter the GCC. We're also trying to enter new areas such as Asia. We've started working with partners in Japan recently. Part of what we're doing is networking in order to have partners selling our solutions in their areas where we focus on the SMBs. So the enterprises, for example, whereas in the past we focused for about 3.5 years just on enterprises, we now offer high rev share deals to partners in different regions for them to be able to spread the software themselves whilst focusing on the SMB efforts we mentioned earlier and the plugins and so forth. This is what we are doing in order to remain sustainable. Focus on the users, pivot when necessary, and try to reach the masses with solutions that up until now were only affordable or available to enterprises.
Great. Thank you, Roy, for those. Next, I have Walid. So how big is sustainability a big part of your investments, especially when it comes to e-commerce and social apps and consumer-related apps?
Yeah, while e-commerce platforms serving basic needs have witnessed tangible growth, we always also advise people to keep looking at their expenses, to keep looking at the quality of their services, and to keep looking at what need to be done, looking at the opportunities in there. Probably a little pivot here and there would help them stay sustainable more and more. This is for the companies doing a good job. For the others, the sectors that have been affected with the COVID-19, we always advise them to look at their P&L very thoroughly and try to stay alive as long as possible. You reduce your burn rate. You look for, if you are a product company, you do some services, some consultancy, some things like this until the pandemic passes on, and you keep your company as minimum burning cash as possible. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Startups, please burn less cash. Thank you. Louis, over to you with the sustainability aspect.
Sustainability. Well, for any company that is looking to have longevity, you have to take, and I said it earlier, you have to take the consumer into consideration. You also have to utilize all the technology that's at your disposal. Artificial intelligence will be real. I mean, it's big now. It will be bigger, and more people will be utilizing it. Because if you go to say a search engine, go to Google, you're on Facebook, people use this stuff. Yeah, it's funny how you type something in, all of a sudden it kind of reads your mind. This is machine learning. It's a part of artificial intelligence, and basically this data just keeps getting accumulated. And really, I mean, I think in the next 5 years, because the implementation of 5G, you're talking not about gigabytes or terabytes, you're talking about zettabytes of data that's going to be collected, and it's going to be very interesting. But utilizing this data, I think that a lot of companies don't know how to use it yet. To better, have a better experience for the consumer. So if you are in that space, e-commerce space, just look at how you can develop your platform, your portal, to be as user-friendly as possible and to connect with your consumer and communicate. That's how you're going to have longevity in what you do. And that's just my advice, to just focus on that, listen to the panel. And I do invite anyone, you guys on the panel are great, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you so much for those insights. Malaika, so how are VCs looking at e-commerce platforms in terms of investing?
Yeah, I'm really glad that everybody's talking about how important it is to be a user-centric platform. I think prior to COVID, or maybe even just before COVID, right? I think when people look at e-commerce businesses, they want to see GMV, they want to see quick top line growth, interesting, a good month-on-month percentage growth every month. What we're seeing today is now investors are viewing e-commerce businesses very differently, at least in this part of the world, this region. You want to look at things like engagement, retention. Is there a strong stickiness on the user side? Are they happy to be back on your platform? What's driving your growth? Are you buying your users? Are you buying orders? Or are you kind of piggybacking off of the growth of repeat users? That's always a positive thing. Are you able to build out, healthy average order values where you could use that to actually optimize on your logistics, create better margins, have, positive gross CM1 and CM2 margins. So it's really important to look at margin structures today as well. We want to see a healthy CAC. We don't want to see, a CAC that makes no sense when you compare it to your customer lifetime value. We want to see interesting wallet share. For example, one of our companies have managed to have a very healthy wallet share on the FMCG spend per user. And that's always a good thing, because it goes to show that huge portion of someone's monthly spend is happening on your platform or your marketplace. That's always interesting to look at as well. And we want to see, positive engagement and a really strong product market fit in terms of the category that they're in as well. I think when we want to look at an e-commerce business with a long-term view, you want to see a business with positive and at least healthy unit economics, or a path to healthy unit economics. We want to see high user retention, engagement, incredible market leadership to show that the company is actually able to, dominate that particular space that they operate in. And we want to see interesting exit prospects as well, at least to show that, it's a feasible business that could potentially have a good exit or a partial exit, or whatever they kind of can see themselves fitting into. So I think that's kind of how we view e-commerce businesses today. So quite different to the last maybe 2 to 3 years.
Great. I totally agree with your insights, Malaika. I'd like to ask Roy one question. So you are going to raise Series A for your startup. So how do you think VCs are looking, as a startup, so what are VCs looking in terms of investments?
Well, I know that this year, most VCs, or at least the major ones, have decided to postpone their investments, which is why we mainly went out with angel investments this year. We're also doing the SAFE round as a bridge towards Series A to increase the valuation, also with smaller VCs, family offices, and angels. However, in mid next year, we're probably going to approach the larger VCs we've been negotiating with, at which point I think they'll mainly be looking at traction and MRRs, which is what we're building up towards Series A. And I suppose that's what they most times they look for in Series A. I mean, seed could be a nice one for traction in terms of just the technology, but when reaching A or even later on B, there must be a revenue traction. So like any other investment firm, I suppose.
Right. Thank you so much, Roy, for coming from a startup perspective. Great insights. Jennifer, so what are your thoughts about how to attract VC money for an e-commerce business or startup right now?
Well, I will say to the startups that I feel they probably now is the right time to increase their knowledge and experience in sales, marketing, and communicating with our customers. And basically, it will be better for them to get pretty much involved in these areas than outsource it completely to third parties, because this is pretty much relevant to attracting VCs and investors, because most investors want to see some kind of traction. You may have a brilliant idea, but if there's no traction, then the investor is not likely to be interested. So that is what I'll say they should do. They should take charge of the strategy of their companies and where they want it to go, and direct these third-party companies that may be doing their marketing and sales for them. But that's very important right now.
Great. Thank you so much. Have some traction startups before you approach a VC. Thank you. So coming to a VC, so Walid, how are you looking at the e-commerce business and startups as a whole in terms of investments?
Well, as I said before, we've been very pleased with with our e-commerce investment. I encourage all fellow VC friends and colleagues to look seriously at this opportunity. We're having the second wave of pandemic coming, and I'm not looking at selling inside this era. I'm looking just as Lewis said, the era afterwards. The consumer behavior is shaped, and it will never be the same like before. We have to capitalize on this. We have to do an effort. We have to be generous in valuation, and this will yield loyalty of these startups, and we have to empower them. Not only money, we have to give many other things like helping, support, networking, connections, and so many other things we need to give besides money in order to make these companies capable to scale and to hit the large numbers in valuation.
Great point. Startups, if you're listening to Walid, it's not about cutting the check. It's about more than that, hand holding. Thank you, Walid. Thanks for that awesome point. Lewis, what are your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts. I love what Jennifer and Walid had to say. Walid, what you just said about getting your hands dirty, that's important. Too many times you have venture capitalists, they have daddy's money and they throw it at companies and they don't get involved. And that's the truth. And I'm being honest. If they get offended, tough, it's life. But when you are investing in a company, these companies, they're babies. You have to nurture them. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to help them, bring connections to the table, help them to grow, give them advice, give them guidance. Okay, so they can go from point A to point B. And you know what? If you do it the right way and you connect, see, we invest in people. So if you connect with the right people and you go and you nurture them and you teach them the path, okay, and you go and you utilize your capital wisely, you know what? They're going to make you proud and they're going to make you a lot of money. And so it's about doing things right. And with entrepreneurs that are out there doing and creating things, especially in e-commerce, all I can say is don't be like the other guy. You have two parts of that. You have the creative people that create things from scratch. You have the business people that know how to make the money. If you're just a creative person, you better get yourself a business person, because you're going to go to a VC and you're going to promote your company. And the bottom line is they're going to say, you want us to fund your dream. What about the business part of it? If you don't have that, it's going to be hard for anyone to hear your story. They want, because people are investing in you because they believe in you. They believe in what you're doing, but they want to know there's a business plan and there's a path to prosperity. So, listen to Jennifer and Walid, their input, fantastic. It was great.
Thank you, Lewis. Okay, now we are 10 minutes into the show, I just want to know, open the floor to the speakers. Anyone has any question for the co-panelists, co-speakers? Roy, Walid, Malaika, any questions? Because we are in Asia, Indonesia, Jennifer in Dubai. So any questions? Yeah, Walid, yeah, please.
I want to add something. One little thing is we've witnessed the panic in the operations of our e-commerce portfolio the time of COVID. And again, as Lois said, Amazon is not an e-commerce platform. It's a logistics company. So people, they take this lightly, while we need to exert great effort in acquiring customers and doing an effort to watch and optimize the consumer pipeline. We have also to have parallel even more effort in having a tight operation that's capable to scale and that's capable to outsource the unnecessary activities outside of the company borders. So so that if we have these scalable operations, we can scale easily, and we can have capture the opportunity, and we can minimize the churn of the customers. That's
excellent. Thank you so much for adding those remarks. Anybody has any other questions? This is the right panel and the right time. We've got the investors and a successful entrepreneur on the panel. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. I think that anyone that's listening, any of the viewers that are watching and listening to the show, I do implore you to go, and this is a great panel from you have from one end to the other, one end of the world to the other, connect, learn, and take that as an asset for yourself for the future, because the more information you gather from people that have been there, that have a wealth, a plethora of information to give to you, go on LinkedIn, follow them, go to their website, whatever it is, learn from them here and there, and it's gonna help you, and you're gonna be able to help other people. And I want to thank everyone on the panel for being a part of this. This has been a great show. I'm glad that I was able to make it.
Thank you so much, Louis, for your time today. I really appreciate it. I just want to ask Roy, what's your feedback about VCTV? What value has it added to you today?
I think mainly I got to meet some wonderful people here on the panel, some of the panelists, or a lot of you. And I will definitely try to make some connections. As I mentioned before, we are looking to enter the GCC. We are looking to enter Asia. There are some great panelists here. I'm sure we'll be able to get in touch after this panel. So thank you for this, and we'd be more than happy to attend again. Also, Dan Shamir, our CMO, here on the background. So we both will be more than happy to join on here on the show again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roy. Thank you so much for those feedback. Malaika, what's your feedback about VCTV, the format we have? This is the second time, I guess, you are on our panel.
Yeah, I think first of all, I just always have a good time. It's just so insightful to bring people from different parts of the world talking about, the background that they come from and what they're seeing. It's just really insightful for me more than, as much as I enjoy sharing, I enjoy listening a lot more. So thank you to everyone for being here. It's just always a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure all mine. Jennifer, have we lost Jennifer? Oh, Jennifer, hi. So what's your feedback? I mean, this is your probably third time. So what do you feel about VCTV that brings you back? You're on mute.
It's a great platform. I do like the discussions and meeting the other speakers. It gives a good insight as to what's going on out there since COVID started. And I like to share ideas with the viewers as well, so that they can take some insights from me and the rest of the speakers, and hopefully to help them with their businesses and give them an insight as to what's going on out there.
Excellent. That's the knowledge that comes from these panels. Thank you so much. Walid, as an investor, how has VCTV added value to you?
Yeah, first of all, I'm glad with the questions and with the insights of the fellow panelists. I'm really thankful to you to bring me into this great panel, and I just would like to have next time when we have a panel like this, I would like to see 2 e-commerce platforms who are selling goods to the consumers coming with us into the panel, and then we talk. Yani, if we are talking about a certain vertical, about certain industry, about certain type of business or technology, I would like to have some startups in there to give us so that we have in front of the audience the 360 degrees of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It brings to the end of the panel. My colleague Carol just mentioned that my connection is a bit weak, so just bear with me if I look a little broken up. So, Luis, before we close the show, what are your feedback about VCTV? I mean, you've been talking in US and talking in Asia. So, what's more you want to add?
Yeah, I talk all over the world. I have my own show too, so I reach a lot of people. And the great thing about VCTV, and you can quote me and promote this, is connection. I'm about people. I'm all about people, connecting with people, sharing ideas, and when you do that, you get a lot more out of it. You know, just like in any industry, you if you go and you hoard your information and that knowledge, then how smart are you? How knowledgeable are you? You can't be. You have to have an open mind and take that knowledge, share it. You do that, then you're doing a service to the world, for that matter. You know, so VCTV is an avenue for that. And again, just from today, just the panelists, the way the panel was set up, I appreciate that. Everyone was great. They had a lot of great input. You know, Waleed talked about bringing other e-commerce things, and I think that has to be a show within itself, because it's going to take too much space. And Waleed, forget it, but your head's going to with the e-commerce people. But no, it's good that that you're doing this, and I do appreciate it. And you're doing great, Sonny. Don't forget that.
Oh, thank you, Luis. Thank you for this compliment. I love it. I mean, I love these hosting the shows myself. I've learned a lot in the last 6-7 months. That brings us to the end of the show. And so startups, if you are watching the show, don't forget to catch these valuable people in your life. These people are more valuable than anything else for you right now. You can actually pitch to these investors by selecting them on our website, www.latoken.com/profiles. You can select your favorite investor to pitch to. Please don't waste any time on traveling, on money on hotels, expensive conferences, all that gone. You can directly reach out to investors on our website, and all you have to do is just hit the pitch button. Thank you so much, all the speakers, for sharing your valuable knowledge on a Friday evening for some of us here in Asia, and some of like Luis in US starting your day. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time that you dedicate to these sort of panels. And before I close, I just want to say, have a good weekend. Stay safe, and let's all stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Bye.
meeting you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.